Have you checked the children? Your little master.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Long days and pleasant nights, fellow travelers, along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime Fuego. And if it please you, join me here for a bit of palaver on Hail to Stephen King. That's Reezy, y'all, my favorite author, as you can see by that tower of tomes behind me there. And obviously, bienvenidos and welcome to the horror show. And I'm supremely stoked today to be discussing for its 35th anniversary. Holy hell, man! I cannot believe that this film, Stand By Me, is 35 years old. It was initially released on August 8th in kind of a limited rollout, and then 2 weeks later on August 22nd of 1986. One of the most celebrated Sai King films, like, ever, obviously. This, along with Shawshank a number of years later, really just altered people's opinions about El Rey, in my estimation, in the fact that they're like, oh, he doesn't just write scary stories, horror stories, you know, he is the king of horror, obviously, and rightfully so, but yeah, this is where people were just like, Dizam, okay, Stephen King wrote that, that's kind of crazy, and obviously it was based on the novella, The Body, from different seasons, and so they went with a slightly sweeter title, you know, referencing the Benny King song, which is just wonderfully utilized in the somber finale of this film. Was Richard Dreyfuss, who I've totally spaced that Richard Dreyfuss is the narrator, is the writer, is basically Gordy all grown up in this, and so he is great. Very nostalgically looking back on, I mean, hey, as he says at the very end of this film, you never have better friends than when you're 12 years old, man, you know, Jesus, who does? And it most definitely resonates within me, that just recollection of, you know, summers spent in northern Arizona in Prescott, and, you know, just being able to forage around and, you know, catch lizards and just, you know, wandering through the forest and stuff like that. It's most definitely some of my fondest memories, and, you know, very similar, though, to just what grown-up Gordy says at the end of this film. He's like, yeah, you know, not even connected with these peeps anymore, and it's that very nostalgic yet bittersweet sort of feeling, especially as you get later in your life, and you're just like, where's the time gone? And yet there is something so sweetly simple about those sort of just memories, and how they can, it's very similar in the bittersweetness at the end of it, actually, in the fact that, yeah, you're like, they're already fading away, fading into memory, and there's just, I don't know, the coming of age story, as my buddy from Mike's Book Reviews, Mike Kearns, always likes to say, it's something that King has always done oh so flawlessly, and this was one of the first forays into it, and as he even said himself, he's like, yeah, this is totally autobiographical, and just looking back at his time growing up in the 50s, the story takes place in 1959. Now, I don't know why they decided to change Castle Rock from Maine to Oregon, but, you know, maybe there were, like, tax credits and, you know, involved or something of that nature. But yeah, so we're in Castle Rock, Oregon, not in Maine, but the cinematography is oh so beautiful. This is a very pretty looking film, and Rob Reiner, I mean, everybody knew him up to this point, really, aside from he had done, like, Spinal Tap, which I love, obviously, but he was more so known as being the meathead on All in the Family, and so, yes, he had done comedic stuff, but this was really him foraging into something much more sentimental, much more serious, and that's not to say that there aren't funny moments in this. I mean, come on, lard ass, like, the entirety of that scene is so utterly ludicrous, and it seems like the type of story that a 12-year-old boy would concoct, you know, with the barfarama, you know, the nasty gross outness of it, and the whole pie eating contest, and what Lardass had done before with the cooking oil and the egg, and it's a really gross scene, but yet it is very hilarious in its just silliness, and so that's a standout scene for a lot of people, but you just have to give so much credit to these four young actors in this, and obviously Dreyfuss is great too as the narrator, as I mentioned, but I had totally forgotten John Cusack is in this movie as the faithful older brother of Gordy, and making him the main character in comparison with, you know, the novella, because I guess it's a little bit longer than a short story in that regard. But whereas that one, I feel like focused on all 4 of the kids pretty well, and yes, you know, Gordy wants to be a writer and all that different stuff, so he is the Sai King stand-in, so to speak. But really, just the kind of torturedness of his character in this, Will Wheaton, dude. Wow, and so young to be doing this. All 4 are great. Jerry O'Connell, before he, you know, got less chubbed and, you know, grew into his body and was doing Sliders and, you know, all those movies and stuff like that. He still has that hilarious cameo in Can't Hardly Wait that I friggin' love. But River Phoenix being the truly tragic instance here, playing Chris. I mean, he shows so much vulnerability. Like, him and Will Wheaton both have that, well, just about everybody aside from O'Connell, you know, Corey Feldman is very good in this as well. So there's the 2 characters with kind of an edge, and then you've got Jerry O'Connell's Vern, who is just like, he doesn't really seem to have as much like personal pain to focus on in comparison with the other 3 characters. And, you know, those 3, O'Connell's the wimpy kid. He's like kind of the tag along that, you know, but he plays a very important component within this too, as these kids just go out to look at a dead body. It's really a relatively simple story in that regard, but it's the performances 100%. And I was reading on the wiki that I guess Reiner's idea was to have these kids just hang out for 2 weeks when they were in the pre-production process, just so they could just iron out that camaraderie, and so they could actually become friends, because then come off so much more effectively on the screen. And it shows, you know, Will Wheaton and Feldman, and there's some really great supplemental features on here. There's a picture-in-picture commentary that's really dope. There's also other behind-the-scenes bits and whatnot, and a Stand By Me music video, obviously. But yeah, it just, wow, talented beyond their years, these kids, man. But River and Wheaton specifically for me, because yes, Feldman, he's like, you know, tortured and has these issues with his father and how, you know, his ear was all burned up and stuff and whatnot. But really the scenes that stand out to me the most are 2 in particular, where River Phoenix is like crying and kind of unburdening his soul to Wheaton's Gordy. And then later on in the film, Will Wheaton, as he just confides in his friend, you know, he's telling Chris, he's like, yo, my dad hates me, I'm no good. And Will Wheaton sells that bit of just, I don't know, admittance and self-deprecation so incredibly well. Reiner got just amazing performances out of these kids, but yet really more so than anything, it is that the camaraderie and the chemistry aspect that really makes this film so special. But, you know, I can, even though I was an older brother, you know, I'm the oldest of 3, I still can relate to just, you know, the self-doubt and all of the issues that Gordy's character goes through, man. I mean, his parents were just in love with the golden boy, John Cusack, the older brother, you know, football star, all that other stuff. And, you know, Wheaton as Gordy, he's just like writing his funny little stories. And the scene at the dinner table resounds so very much, where Will Wheaton's character, he's like asking for the potatoes, and like nobody's really paying attention to him. The mom finally gives them to him. But yes, it's not something that, it's different as an older brother, obviously, and like the duty and the aspect of that and whatnot. But yeah, you can most definitely, I had injuries, and so I grew up playing like soccer and basketball and stuff like that, but I had heel problems, all this different stuff, and so I can relate to the parents most definitely kind of preferring the younger kids. Like, I got in trouble in school, and yet even though my grades were really good, you know, I was the one who, you know, fought and got suspended and things of that nature. So yeah, both of my little brothers, they are amazing, wonderful men now, and yet since they forged forward with the sports and stuff like that, there was much more of like a connective sort of situation in comparison with me, because, you know, I was the one who got in trouble, and I was the, you know, rebellious kid, and, you know, both of my little brothers, they sowed their wild seeds, but they were just a little bit more sneaky about it, because I was the one who set the example of, you know, the bad example in some ways of, you know, getting in trouble and so on and so forth. So that's where I can most definitely connect with Gordy, even though I am an, you know, older brother and he's a younger brother and stuff like that. as far as the parental approval and the fact that I decided to, cover music and film and television and stuff like that, as opposed to forging forward with sports and doing what my parents connected with, I think, a little bit more easily. And so that's where I can most definitely connect with Gordy as a character. And yet, they're all interesting and all very multifaceted. And if not for the sheer fact that you had such rich source material for them to actually work with, this film wouldn't have worked. And so, props to Reiner, his DP, who, shut the hell out of this, and it's oh so very beautiful. But there is a very interesting process of this actually, coming to fruition, because of the fact that Reiner was not originally supposed to direct it. There were a couple different people that cycled around as, and King was reaching King status. He already had at this particular point, and so he wanted not only, I think it was like $100,000 to option it, but he also wanted 10% of the profits, and that sort of back end. It's become more prominent, with very big time film stars now, where they're like, okay, I'll settle for slightly smaller, salary for the movie, but then just let's see how it performs at the box office, and that's how I will continue with my residual doll hairs and such. And so, yeah, King apparently drove a pretty hard bargain, but they still got it all together and made this film, although it took like 3 years, and that's because it was originally going to be at Embassy Pictures. Then Embassy Pictures was actually purchased by Columbia, and so yes, this is a Columbia release, and it's also before Rob Reiner actually formed his Castle Rock Entertainment, so where he took that name from, obviously. But yeah, just it was a lengthy process actually getting this made, and I guess from what I understand, Norman Lear, the guy who developed All in the Family and various other big time comedic shows and stuff like that, he actually supplied like $7-something million to actually get the film finished, and then they were still trying to find distribution, and so yeah, the film industry is it's a very strange entity in that regard, right? And so yes, it was a process getting this done, and Rob Reiner connected with the material. They did some rewrites, and yeah, we have one of the greatest Sai King adaptations in that regard. And I mean, the music is a blast throughout. It's very much of this time, you got Lollipop and Yakety Yak and all of that. So the soundtrack is oh so rich throughout, and yeah, I mean, I didn't see this one as a kid, so I think other constant readers and viewers, they have a little bit more of like that nostalgic connectivity with this, especially if you grew up in that area. If you're like Sai King's age, you'll just love the hell out of this one. But it is timeless in just the cool little journey and stuff. And yes, I was probably more so like a Monster Squad kid, as a child in the 80s, but I still appreciate oh so very much just about everything from this film. It is so sweet and heartfelt, but yet also, as I said, it does have that sort of bittersweet aspect of just what aging entails, and how, friends don't always keep in touch. My best friend growing up, we stayed tight for a long time, man. I mean, I can very fondly say that 2 of my best friends from kindergarten, I still keep in touch with them. We've got our little group thread on Facebook and stuff, which is fun. But yeah, there is that bittersweetness of aging and the disconnect that transpires, and it does really hit you in the feels with this particular one, man. It genuinely does, and it's one that I probably would connect with just a slight bit more if I had actually seen it as a kid, like with the Monster Squad and Goonies and stuff. But it's a very resonant tale regardless, and yeah, man, this one it has so much going for it, and it's easily one of the best Sai King adaptations. It's always spoken within the same breath as Shawshank. I guess Misery, which came a few years after this and stuff like that. But if you're just doing like a full-on dramatic King without any sort of horror going on or whatever, I mean, yes, I guess Kiefer Sutherland as Ace Merrill, like, he's formidable, and the confrontation at the very end with, the knife and the gun, and just those kids standing up to the bullies, man, it's inspiring, and it definitely resonates. It really does, because I remember very distinctively the older bullies in grade school specifically picking on me initially, and then I went out and I played basketball with them, and they're just like, oh, okay, you're a feisty little fugga. And so, but yeah, we've all been there, and we've all been picked on to some degree, I would imagine. I don't think that there is anybody who hasn't experienced that sort of torment, and I think that it's a formative sort of thing in a lot of ways. And now I know with online bullying, it's so much, yeah, there is a lot of courage that goes into that sort of smack talking and just teasing, and the whole virtual aspect has, I think, enabled even more so, because you don't have to do it to somebody's face. And those scenes are tense in this film, and they're highly effective. They really genuinely are. Ace Merrill is one of King's best villains, and yeah, Sutherland knocks it out of the park. But more so than anything, just to circle back to the performance of the four kids, you know, Corey and River and Will and Jerry O'Connell, they make me remember my childhood, and it very much is kind of a tough pill to swallow, thinking about those friends who you're not connected with anymore, and those just, you know, wonderful memories. And this film really, most definitely, in just about any possible capacity, it just hits those feels, man. It really, truly does, and it's easily one of the best Psyching adaptations. And yes, what do you guys think about this one? I know this is a slightly shorter review. I forgot how short this film is. This film is less than 90 minutes, so it's very simple in its premise, and it's more so than anything just about friendship and the wonderful moments that seem rather mundane, you know, where they're sitting around the campfire and they're all just joking about silly things like, you know, what is Goofy? You know, they're like, Mickey is a mouse, and, you know, Donald is a duck and whatever. They're like, what the hell is Goofy? You know, I always thought dog too, but, you know, and so just conversation that seems just silly and pointless at times, but yet that's, you know, before you get into girls, as they say it, that, or boys, you know, whatever your preference, but before you start really wanting to interact in a physical manner with another person, you know, there is a very simple sweetness to this era of childhood where you're on that cusp, you know, because they're talking about, yeah, I'll see you in junior high. Like, that is such a formative sort of time in somebody's life, and it's, you know, right before you'll start dating probably, and where there is just that very blissful sort of freshness to everything, as pointless as it may be in the grand scheme of things. This film encapsulates that in such a fantastic fashion. And if you guys haven't seen Stand By Me, like, goodness lord, unfortunately it's not streaming anywhere currently, so yes, you gotta either rent it on the VODs or you know, pick up this great 25th anniversary Blu-ray, which is just a awesomely put together package and stuff, guys. But yeah, what are your thoughts about this one? Stand By Me. Can you believe it? 35 years now. I guess they do this whole celebration in Oregon where they filmed this, and so it is just that much of a cultural benchmark. And I know it made money when it initially came out. It was considered a success. It was also nominated for an Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. Also had a couple Golden Globe nominees, or nominations if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it was both celebrated by critics and by audiences, and with every proper reason. Stand By Me is about as close to a flawless Psyching adaptation as you can get. So, Rob Reiner, you did good, man. Great job, Meathead. So, what are your thoughts on Stand By Me? Is it overrated in your estimation? Did you see it as a kid, or did you connect with it as an adult and have that bittersweet, nostalgic recollection? Let me know in the comments below. And yes, just to remind everybody, as I give my grande gracias, that the book of the month for here in August is none other than, right back there, Bachman's The Regulators, yes, for its anniversary. So we are going to have that for the month of August, and then we're going to be reading its twinner book in September, which is none other than Desperation, which I think is a little bit more heralded, you know, but yes, they're both drastically different and interesting, like, mirroring versions of themselves. And so we have that to look forward to at the beginning of September. We will be talking all about Richard Bachman, Psyching's alter ego, and The Regulators. And lastly, have to mention the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group. Really one of the only things that gets me on the Facebook at this particular point. And yes, it's all Sai King and family discussion, so we get a little bit of Joe Hill, maybe Tabby or Owen gets a brief mention here and there. But yes, it is all about El Rey, and we have over 1,000 strong on there. Nice, like not too ginormous Ka-Tet, and great palaver there. And so if you have any inclination, please jump over. I'm the sole admin and moderator on there, and I would love to connect with you. Talk all about Sai King, whether it's books, films, TV, whatever the interconnected universe may be. And we also have Chapel Wait to look forward to very, very soon based on Jerusalem Slot. So very excited about that as well. So that's going to be the end of the proceedings here on this Flying Tower Tuesday. I extend a grande gracias. I have been Jaime Fuego. Find moi on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on the YouTubies. And yes, y'all, until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, sen amigos, constant readers and viewers alike, say thank you. I hope that we have been well met and get to share more of this palaver sooner rather than later. And until then, remember to stay scared. And in this instance, you definitely want to watch Stephen King. But don't forget to read Stephen King. The body's damn good as well.